Marcia asked me to kind of group these together in that spirit of making sure that we're not doing some and not other things. You know, the example of the pods. We're not buying computers for the pods and not going to take care of the electrical and the networking facilities that we need, as an example. So I tried to group these into 4 groups, and I provided that in the final report. I did that, and we've gone back and forth quite a bit because I was hoping that I would be a valuable resource for the budget process. I know you're in the middle of that, like all other school districts right now, and it's a very hard thing to do. So I hope the work that I did with the educators here in Jamestown helps inform that. And I can certainly answer any questions if that helps in the budget process tonight. Ongoing as far as my relationship goes, I would like to, through Sarico, continue to be a resource for questions, for clarifications, what have you, based on this. I don't want this to just be a one-shot plan and walk away. I get to retire in about 35 years, so I'm going to be doing this this work for a while. So I'm really hoping that this is an ongoing relationship. And that's what I have for you tonight. So if there are additional questions, I'd like to talk about it now.
I had one other one. The standards, the curriculum standards for the students, you said were state standards, and you were recommending that we as a district adopt these 21st century. That was a purchase thing, the skills assessment. The
net standards are simply a set of standards that are endorsed by ISTE, which is the international body. The state of Rhode Island has, not officially, but in essence endorsed them because of the tool that they purchased to measure that is based on them.
Okay. And is there a similar state set of standards? Have they also recommended these technology standards for the teachers and administrators, or would that be just at a district basis?
To my knowledge, the state of Rhode Island, I could be wrong, but has done nothing with teacher and administrator standards. I think they focused on students at this point. I think if we're doing it, we might as well do it across our community here. I think it makes sense.
And you have a note here that Connecticut is adopting these standards for the certified staff. Has there been any discussion at Sarico or our new commissioner about adopting these standards?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that but Sarico would not have the authority to do that.
It would have to come from
it would be from the state, and I'm not. I can't answer it.
Because technology was certainly a discussion at the roundtables events she hosted.
Yes.
I haven't heard any discussion about adopting these.
So we would be doing this as a district.
I think that the state is at a beginning level.
And to be clear, the state of Connecticut hasn't adopted it as part of their recertification or certification process, although there has been talk. It's simply an adoption of the ISTE standards as a state certified document for districts within Connecticut to use as a guiding principle.
Questions? In Connecticut, is there inter-district leasing contracts, etc.?
Economies of scale, if you will.
Has there been a move to consolidate purchasing and leasing and within the IT? What sort of consolidation of resources?
They're not from a hardware perspective so much. Like you have collaboratives here in Rhode Island, we have what we call regional educational service centers. And there has been group buying in the software and services areas. The Microsoft School Agreement, something we didn't talk about, which is a recommendation, if you will, is something that we can buy as a regional group, which gets our per license cost down, which has been beneficial, especially when we talk about the amount of money that we send to Microsoft every year to license their software. But it's really been from that standpoint. We have not gotten into hardware so much. There are state contracts in Connecticut which certain districts will use to go, not to get around, but so the bid process doesn't have to take place in a specific district if you buy from a state contract. Districts that I've been in have utilized that. The state has already done the work of getting that price down, and we can buy off of that. But not so much for hardware.
It's like the Massachusetts state business. Right.
And Dr. Ruben, just so I understand where this all falls, are all 24 of your recommendations in the budget of the 131,966? Doesn't seem like that's possible.
Not everything is there. We budgeted for the pods at Melrose and the Wi-Fi in this building, you know, everything that would be needed to install, because that's what the principal thought was the most important first step for her school. Here, we're taking steps, but we're not trying to do everything in year one.
Got it. So what
We
will
do
you
have
see
in the
this-
operating budget, the web hosting cost. We put in the data recovery cost.
Right.
Those things that we thought were most crucial to start immediately. And when I saw the draft a few weeks ago when we were putting together the capital budget, the way Cliff had the recommendation on the teacher laptops, it said to purchase and then went on and mentioned lease, so they were both there. And I put the purchase price in thinking that if the decision was then to lease, then it would be about the same amount of money. It would just be a different process. But we thought, you know, trying to have pods in both schools across the board, to try to do laptops all at once, and Wi-Fi, it just was,
Right.
it was too much to do even with a full-time administrator.
So this is more of you started out by saying a 5-year implementation on this? or-
It is, and like I said before, and maybe I wasn't clear, we tried to group these in logical units together. It would be I would be a happy man if I walked out here and you adopted all 24 and had the money to do it. Well, that's just not realistic. We live in a world of limitations, so we've worked to prioritize what those are and what makes sense based on administrative input and so forth. But I felt strongly about laying out all the recommendations so that the school committee and everyone could see the big picture.
I have another question. Under hardware and peripherals, goal 6, it says, test and adopt alternatives to costly and traditional smartboard installs. Is what we have been doing costly and traditional smartboard installs?
Yes,
Okay.
in my opinion, yes.
So, because we had talked about adding smartboards so this is going in a different direction now? Can you explain that a little bit?
I don't know what direction Jamestown will choose, but I will give you my 2 cents. In my opinion, far too many school districts across the country have done technology because they've purchased smart boards for their teachers and their classrooms. I am not against smart boards per se, but I think when I see a district like Jamestown tackling instructional improvement and moving to a more progressive model, a student-centered model, I question whether putting our dollars into smart boards, which in my estimation seems to reinforce teacher as that preacher, to use a bad cliche, at the front of that classroom, I question the bang for your buck and whether you're sending a mixed message. Again, I'm not anti-smart boards. I think smart boards, when used correctly, in my opinion, and effectively, with students interacting and being the center of that learning, I think they can be effective. Too often I've seen school districts spend a lot of money and almost take their eye off the ball with instructional improvement because they've done technology. And that's my concern. And the reason I put there are alternatives is there are alternatives. There's a product that the Aver Media Company makes, which are Aver pens, which instead of a smart board at the front of the room, you still have a projection unit, but you have what looks like a big magic marker, and you have maybe 8 of them, and you hand them out to students. And the teacher can select, all right, pen number 8, and the student will literally write on a desk. And it's just a stylus with a camera pointing at it, all built in, so they're not desecrating the desk or anything. But as they write on the desk, it's actually appearing up on the screen. And the teacher can select, okay, now I want pen 2, now I want pen 4. To me, that's a more student-centric way of doing it. And in a 42-minute period with a smartboard, what does each student get? 2.3 minutes up at the smartboard? I question some of that logic. And there's also a cost factor. You know, do I want to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to buy a projector, buy the smartboard, buy the controllers, buy the wiring, have it installed in the ceiling, have the wiring run, and please make sure you're not going to do any modifications to the building or